Welcome to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprofit.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fantasy Football Profit Podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, joined as always by Jeff Torrey, and today we're talking Week 2 waiver wire, which a lot of times is the most exciting episode of the year, I would say. Week 1 is done. You get to find out all the guys who weren't on people's radars that step up, and you go spend big bucks on them. And if you're, and if you have a fab budget or use your number one waiver wire. And I'm going to go and say, Jeff, we don't have that guy this week, do we? Not quite. I mean, it's not quite there. But hey, I think we got some interesting options. So we'll go over that in just a second. Before we do that, make sure you guys go check us out on Twitter at the FF Profit or Instagram, Fantasy Football Profit there. And go to the website, fantasyfootballprofit.com, where all of our rankings are. Check us out all those places. And as well, go to youtube.com/fantasyfootballprofit and subscribe to us there as well. So let's jump into this thing here. I would say I think it's a clear number one. It's not a great number one, but I think it's a pretty clear number one. I mean, at least in my mind, it's Nahim Heinz, I think, is the number one waiver wire ad of the week based on, how he played, on Sunday, the fact that Marlon Mack is injured, and that, Jonathan Taylor will be the guy, but it's not like Jonathan Taylor set the world on fire in week 1. And one of the things with Nahim Heinz is I can kind of, see a scenario where he becomes Rivers' new Austin Eckler. You know what I mean? Phillip Rivers loved Austin Eckler. Why can't Heinz be that for Rivers again? And I feel like in week 1, he kind of became that. And I think it could continue with Rivers. Rivers throwing the ball there to Heinz, and could be a similar, I'm not saying he's as good as Austin Eckler, but it could be a similar role and similar, production, in a way. Eckler was able to do that with Melvin Gordon. Why can't Heinz do it with Taylor? So I think it kind of fits to me. And, got the receiving back with the Wisconsin running back, basically. It's a very, with the same quarterback. Why not? I think it works. So I think Heinz could have more value.
Yeah, the injury definitely is the thing that, promotes that the most. And I like your analogy. I don't know how much it carries over. It does, obviously, because of Rivers and the quarterback. Is that really what they want to do, offensive coordinator wise and all of that?
Maybe.
We'll still find out, but it does show. They were willing to use all 3 of them when they had them healthy. So now that they only have 2 of them, you really think that, they're going to go to a one-back system? I'm definitely not right away. And like you said, Jonathan Taylor, I believe in him, but he didn't set the world on fire.
It'll take a little more.
Yeah, so I like that pick.
It's not spectacular, though.
Right, we don't have that surefire guy after week 1. We just don't know enough. But I do think that he has a ton of upside, as well as you're able to play him week 2 if you have to.
Yeah.
So that's why I like him probably the most as well. And then probably followed by Joshua Kelly.
He's there. Oh, it depends on, I guess, what you need. But I'll say this first off with people. If they haven't listened before, we try to keep our waiver wire to on ESPN about 40% owned and under. We don't like to go above 40%. We try to keep it down here. So I would say, so for me with Kelly, it depends on if you need a guy to play right away. If you need somebody to use next week, maybe it's not Kelly. Maybe it is, honestly, maybe it's Adrian Peterson. And long term, I think Kelly could be a better option. Peterson's not. I just can't see a scenario where Peterson makes it through this season doing the kind of work he did in week 1. But I think that'll happen in week 2. I really do believe it'll happen in week 2 again. And he looked good yet. He still has something left. And he's only owned in about 21% of leagues right now. I definitely think he's worth an ad. And if you need to play somebody, play him.
I like that a lot, actually. I like, from what we saw this week, right, where they didn't play particularly well and he had over 90 yards rushing. I do think that is probably correct. As in, I don't want to I'm not fully off the wagon of Austin Eckler could have a larger share than they showed today. Especially, catching the ball if it's a hot hand. Joshua Kelly did get into the end zone, so it does kind of skew it a little bit. So I like what you're saying with AP being maybe the guy for the next few weeks or so. Like, hey, if you need someone to play. But I do like the upside of Kelly a little bit more.
Well, and I probably even have James Robinson yet ahead of Kelly. So James Robinson, again, wasn't spectacular, but he's the guy there in Jacksonville right now. He's going to get majority, at least for the next couple of weeks. If Zigbo comes back after, I think 3 weeks, he has to be on IR at least. If he's able to come back after that, maybe he eats into that. But at least weeks 2 and 3, Robinson, who had 16 carries in week 1, he's going to probably get a lot of work again. And that offense was efficient. I'll say that. It wasn't great, but it was efficient. And so Robinson, it just depends on what you need right now. I don't think Robinson has the upside that Kelly has, but it's all about what you need right now. If you just want a guy for the end of the bench to wait and see what he becomes, Kelly might be that guy. Robinson, I don't think is a spectacular player. I think he's literally just another guy who's in a situation where he's going to get the opportunity right now. So that's why I'd probably go Heinz, Peterson, Robinson, Kelly, somewhere in that order, I would say. That's probably what I'd stick to. And then, I'm actually completely missing one here. This is going to have to go up near the top because it's going to be Malcolm Brown from the Rams. Malcolm Brown.
Yeah.
It has to be Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah.
So Malcolm Brown, it's kind of a split with Akers. It is a split with Akers, but Brown looked better than Akers. He got in the end zone a few times. And he had, he's slightly more work than Akers did. So Brown, there's a lot of these guys that they're not spectacular, right? And I don't love Brown because I think Akers can take over for Brown. I think he will take over for Brown. They knew, the Rams knew what they had in Brown. They still went and drafted Akers, obviously, right? I know they're going to use both, but I believe they want even Akers to overtake Brown. I think everyone.
I do feel that way, but after you said that, okay, that's very true. Especially the way they play. Man, I'm trying to think of who would you take if you needed someone to play next week. Would you take Brown or AP? AP might get once again. It's kind of the same thing though because they do have DeAndre Swift there. That obviously
they want that
him to eventually, and Kerryon Johnson. So it becomes a very difficult one. I actually thought. I'm trying to think of who actually looked better. I thought AP looks a little bit better. I think he'll probably get worn down really quickly. But Brown was probably number 2 after that. And I actually like his upside a little more than I like maybe even over Kelly. And I know that they want to give it to Akers, but if I'm going strictly off of week 1, he looked better at what they were trying to do, and it looks like he's going to be the goal line back.
Yeah, he ended up with what?
I know Kelly is the goal line back as well, but I feel like Austin Eckler, we've seen enough where we're kind of like they'll figure it out. Like they'll get him the ball more. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of feel like it would be if you needed someone to play next week, I would go AP and then probably Brown. And then if you were like, well, I need it to be a little longer than that, I'd probably go Brown and then Kelly. And for some reason, the Jacksonville situation freaks me out too much. He should be on the list. But I don't have any confidence in it.
He's below. Yeah, Brown is going to be up there for me. He looked solid. He looked good, and they trusted him obviously. And
I also don't believe in Akers all that much. So when I see that he can actually run behind that line, or they trust him with the goal line carries, I have to believe that for the next few weeks, this is what it's going to be. And also, I think that he could hold on to it, really. What's 1 year, really?
Right.
Cam Akers is probably the future.
But it doesn't always work right away. So I guess some people would throw Peyton Barber on this list, but honestly, I just can't. Sorry.
Yeah, he should probably be on it.
It depends. It depends on how many wide receivers are on my list in a minute because otherwise.
Yeah. I agree.
It was a very inefficient day, I would say that, from Peyton Barber. And I just can't see what scenario are you playing him? It would have to be, you'd have to be in a dire need for a running back. And I just don't think that happened this weekend to anybody. You would have had to have a terrible draft and have nobody somehow.
Yeah, and you also not get any of the other guys we talked about because he is completely touchdown dependent. Yeah. He is obviously the goal line back, but how much good for Washington getting the win, but how much do I believe in their offense? Very little. So how how many tries a game are you actually going to get there? And we already saw him get snuffed out a couple times. So
Yeah.
I'm not into it, but he did get 2 touchdowns. They did give him 17 chances. So
yeah. Okay. How about wide receivers? There's really unless you have another running back that I'm not thinking of, which I don't think
feels like
there
a
is.
lot of wide receivers, I think those are the running backs that
I think we stretched them there. So,
yeah.
All right. So wide receiver wise, there might be a couple. So we're going 40% under again. So like, we're not going to talk about like Sammy Watkins, who's above that, which I don't even know how much we're buying it yet. We'll wait and see. But Anthony Miller is below that list. We talked about him many times. He had a nice touchdown. The numbers weren't, amazing, but he's going to be used, and he got better last year, and I don't see why that's going to change. So I like Anthony Miller there, but Paris Campbell might be ahead of him the way he played in week 1. Paris Campbell's right there as well. He was really the number 1 receiver there for the Colts, ahead of Hilton even. And in year 2, maybe he's taken that next step. So Paris Campbell's interesting, but I know like I'm sitting here talking about these names and I don't feel confident yet in any of them. There was nobody like that was just like, okay, this guy is really good and I have to absolutely have him. I don't feel like we have that at wide receiver. Running back, I even feel better about it. Wide receiver, there's some interesting names, but it's just not there. So it's like the Paris Campbell, Anthony Miller. You could throw out Alan Lazard and even Valdez-Scantling. So that's going to be an interesting group again. No confidence there. It depends on how badly you need it, but in which one's going to emerge as the number 2 there in Green Bay? Is it going to be Lazard? Is it going to be Valdez-Scantling? I don't truly know. I still believe in Lazard, but Valdez-Scantling was the guy ahead of him last year. And just because we've convinced ourselves that Lazard's ahead of him, is he truly?
Yeah, and what does that mean, being a number 2 wide receiver in
4
Green
catches
Bay?
and maybe a touchdown?
Every year we like to pretend that, there has to be a number 2, but
we've been saying that
number
forever.
1, and then there's a bunch of number 3s. That's really what it comes down to in Green Bay.
Just like we convinced ourselves for years that the tight end would be good in Green Bay at some point.
I know,
it never happened.
They throw so well.
It never happened. So,
no.
Some other. The rest of the names are going to be just taking chances, right, and hoping this guy becomes something like. I really truly believe Jalen Reagor is going to be good.
Right. I think. I do think the 2 that did not put up numbers, and that's not why you would get them, but I do think we can talk about them at the same time. I think Jalen Reagor and Brandon Najuk, both of them, Ayuk didn't play. Jalen Reagor was kind of banged up, but he played anyway. He had 1 good catch. But they're on teams that desperately need wide receiver help, and they're both rookies, right? So, Brandon Ayuk, if he plays next week, he could be the number 1 wide receiver, and they didn't throw to wide receivers at all. Like, they do need someone there, and obviously you're waiting for, when's Debo going to come back? He'll be the number 1. But, it's just kind of like a wait and see kind of thing. Like, how much could they possibly throw to a wide receiver if they had someone healthy? Jalen Reagor, even more so, I think that obviously he would go above Ayuk, because it was very clear that they only had a couple people to throw to, and they'd had no wide receiver help whatsoever. So if he could get healthy and they could kind of figure him out, because he also can be a speed guy, I do think that they could use him productively for what he is capable of. Because, as much as I love Dallas Goddard and Ertz, you do need other people to throw to.
Yep. Well, and then, I know others might throw out Russell Gage because he had a big game, but it was they were behind by a lot. They had to throw the ball a lot. He's the number 3 there in Atlanta. And I don't believe that's going to be a role that's going to be productive, a lot of the time. I would much rather still have these young guys on my bench, like the ones we've talked about there, and even still like a Brian Edwards, LaVisca Chenault, even a Van Jefferson. Yeah, Van Jefferson did have one catch for 31 the other night. So those are the kind of guys I'd still want over, like a Russell Gage type player. I'm just not. He would have to do some more, even like a Scotty Miller who did something too. I want the younger guy who I think has the upside. Who's not maybe as capped as some of the others. So I'm still going to go over there. I don't know if there's any other names you like at wide receiver, but there's nothing that's, spectacular there for me.
No, I probably would have thrown out like a Denzel Mims or something.
Yeah,
but after watching the Jets, I'm completely off of it. Like, I don't believe anyone is going to be able to help him out.
No.
So I don't really have another guy that I would feel comfortable throwing his name into the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they would be going to either a bad offense or whatever it may be. So those 5, whatever we threw out there, would probably be the number ones out there.
All right. So at tight end, I think it's a very clear number 1, and it's Dallas Goddard. It's not even close. Dallas Goddard might even be the number 1 waiver wire pickup ahead of the running backs, ahead of the wide receivers. I honestly believe he's that good, and he's going to be involved. So I think Dallas Goddard has to be on everyone's radar. He should be owned. He shouldn't have even been. We said it before. He should not have only been owned in 27% of leagues. It never made sense to us, and he's going to be added everywhere this week. So Dallas Goddard for sure. The rest of them, pick them up if you want, but you don't really need it. OJ Howard, that's the only other one.
I was going to say, I think he's a solid one. I mean, he did get a touchdown, but even without that, he looked like he was going to be implemented into the offense, which you have to like. He looked pretty decent. But
it's Goddard all day.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than that, though, I don't think there was anyone really. I mean, depending on what happens, but Jonnu Smith could be another one.
True, yeah. But man, I just still can't believe Goddard was that just not owned anywhere. It's crazy to me.
No, I mean, I self-aggrandizing for myself because I love him so much and I believed in him, so I picked him up as like the last pick in a lot of drafts. But I do understand that the mental hurdle it takes to get over the fact that he is a number 2 tight end on a team.
True.
When tight ends usually don't produce as much as a lot of other places. So obviously I was going out on a limb, so I understand why it's still 27%, but that definitely has to go up. And especially if you have a flex position where you can throw in a tight end or multiple flex positions for that matter, this guy absolutely has to be on a roster because he's just a good weapon. And that's what you should look at. And depending on who your tight end is too, like if you waited to the end and you got someone, throw this guy on your bench as well, and you can start him until the other guy starts producing, like, shoulder like Hayden Hurst or something. I would much rather start like Dallas Goddard than him until we see them implement him into the offense more. And that it's not just him. I mean, there's a lot of tight ends that would kind of fall into this category, right? So it's not that crazy.
Nope. At quarterback, honestly, I don't think there's enough at quarterback right now. Nothing changed too much for me. So the people under 40% that we would even look at are like a Jimmy Garoppolo, Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield. Definitely don't get Baker. Kirk Cousins, it's just the same name, Minshew. But I don't think enough happened above that where you should really be reaching too much. So it's really going to be a matchup-based thing at this point, obviously, if you're streaming and you're really down the list. And for me, the only one, I mean, you got you got Cousins at Indianapolis. I don't know how that'll go. If you're really risky, you got Trubisky playing against the Giants. So I don't know if you're that. There's no way in week 2.
I can't ever tell anyone to do that. It's another good matchup, but I would be.
No, it's just there's nothing really here yet. We got to see a couple weeks worth of actually, of something going on before we can get into that. So
yeah.
I think honestly that's it for waiver wire in week 1. So what I think we should do here quick, which we didn't get to do the other episode, was talk about Rams Cowboys. We didn't, the game was not over yet when we were recording our Sunday recap. So we got Rams Cowboys. We'll just go through that game real quick. The Rams got a 20-17 win. They, maybe they're back to being the Rams of 2 years ago. Got things a little more under control. And like we talked about on the Rams side of things, we talked about Malcolm Brown for a waiver wire pickup, and he led the team 18 carries, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then even got 3 catches for 31 yards. So Malcolm Brown was clearly, I think, the lead back there. Akers did, though. It's not like Akers wasn't involved. Akers got 14 carries, but only turned it into 39. So Malcolm Brown was much more effective back. And I know you were honestly never on the Akers bandwagon, really. It just seemed, honestly, I really wasn't either. I think I slightly turned, it's gone to a hope because I got him on one of my teams, right. But I just, it's never seemed like he was being elevated too much.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that happens a lot, right? And either you're wrong or you're right. And I think in this case, at least for the first part of the season, people will be wrong, quote unquote. But I also wasn't like, oh, Malcolm Brown's the guy to get. I was just like,
No.
I'm going to stay away from this situation. It does feel like Brown is worth having. It does feel like that, without a doubt. Will that continue? You never really know. The thing I do worry about the Rams, after watching, the first half of the game and then kind of just following along as well as I could as we were recording, McVay is excellent at play calling and figuring out how to, keep people guessing. I do worry that after he does that for a little bit, people get a little wise to it, though. Like they didn't run a lot of plays, and they were, it was kind of like the same look every time, and then they would throw it out quick, and it was a lot of these quick hitter kind of things.
Very simple.
Yes, and that's why like Robert Woods did very well, because he got a bunch of yardage early. And then that is also like Malcolm Brown, like they hit quick and he was able to get in the end zone. Wonderful. But also if you look at like Jared Goff, right, his numbers, not overly impressive, right? No. 20 for 31, 275 yards, which is fine, but no touchdowns and an interception. Like it was very much built on this. We just spread you out and then we get as many yards as we can. It is not a traditional like, 3-step drop and then pass down the field like Dallas was, right? And they beat them because of that. But at the same time, it's like, can the next person game plan for him, and how does that affect the outcome of yardage and everything? Because no one on this team was really, besides from Malcolm Brown and Robert Woods, no one was that fantasy relevant. But I don't know. Do you see that changing?
Not for Tyler Higbee, it won't change.
I still have 40 yards, whatever.
That's about what I expected.
It's more worrisome that Kupp only had 40 yards.
That's a little disappointing there for Kupp. And honestly, at this point, it seems like at least for this game, they knew what they wanted to do, and that was run the ball, right? So it worked. It's hard to say what to expect because McVay will change things up, and maybe this is what he wants to do this year. I can't say it will change. It's possible that he has realized maybe last year that Goff can't do it. I mean, I can't do it. Goff, you don't want to make Goff win you games too much, right? That's
I think he also knows that that's not the type of offensive line they probably have.
Yeah.
And obviously they did good enough to run that many times, but when you're doing all this crazy stuff and spreading them out, it does make it a little easier.
Yep.
So I think McVay is a very smart guy, but I think it does show the limitations of the personnel they have on the field. Not good or bad. I mean, they were able to get a win on Dallas, which is a great thing. I'm not, talking crap about LA, but I do think I have to taper my expectations for a few of the guys, and I think it'll be much more up and down than originally maybe I thought of, like a typical team, kind of like Dallas almost, right? You're kind of like, well, Zeke will get this many touches and Dak will throw it this many times. I wonder if Amari will catch it. You kind of know, but this one is completely, I mean, they ran it with Goff 4 times. Robert Woods had a run, they split the other ones between, 2 major running backs and another one. But even across the board, I mean, Kupp, Higbee, and Woods we expected, but then they tried to throw to Malcolm Brown 3 times. Van Jefferson got a look, and Everett, Josh Reynolds, Cam Akers, like all of that. Yep. A very, very unique and specific game plan. Yep. So I don't know how much of this is what we're going to see, or every game plan is going to be a little different because McVay is just going to be like, well, I'm just going to outthink you this year because last year was rough, and I'm not going through that again.
Well, we definitely need more data with this one. That's for sure. Yeah. So Cowboys side of things, I guess we expected their offense to be, I guess, better than 17 points. It's when you look at their box score and you look at the individual numbers, it doesn't feel like it's that terrible. But, I mean, it's still only 266 and a touchdown for Dak. I mean, Zeke did get 22 carries, 96 yards, a touchdown. He had 3 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. Zeke did not disappoint you. If you had him on your team, he was great. Amari Cooper had 10 catches for 81 yards, just no touchdown there. But in a PPR format, that's a pretty solid day. And the funny thing is, even CeeDee Lamb, a 5 for 59 from a rookie, is a good first game that I'm actually like, okay, that's something to build on.
Better than what I thought he was going to do.
Definitely.
Completely honest.
Just overall, it just didn't work for touchdowns, I guess. Then didn't work for points. That's just how it played out. But there's obviously, I think they'll be better than this. I mean, the Rams, though, the Rams have a lot of good players. They have a lot of good players on defense too. They're a good team. It's not a bad thing to lose to the Cowboys, or the Cowboys lose to the Rams. It's not a terrible loss. So there's definitely some things here in Gallup, a 3 for 50, but I think it was Gallup towards the end there that had a big catch that could have got the Cowboys in field goal range there to extend this game, but he got a push off. So his numbers could have been a lot bigger. I don't really know if it should have been a penalty or not, but Cowboys will be fine. Not too worried about it.
And I don't know who Ramsey was on all game. I saw Gallup make a good catch when Ramsey was on him. But they do have, like you said, they do have good players on the team by far. I mean, he's the highest paid, quarterback in the game. But I think that is very impressive for me. I always worry about Amari Cooper being up and down, but they targeted him 14 times. He caught 10 balls. Even though it wasn't as many yards as I was hoping, 81 is completely, like, if I had him, I would feel very good about it.
Yeah,
I don't mind that at all. Gallup worries me a little more because if CeeDee Lamb is already getting that kind of attention, and obviously you're going to throw to all three of them, but that's just one thing to look at.
You got a cat in the picture, Jeff.
Shooting from home.
Yeah. All right. But hey, we'll see. At the end of the episode, so waiver wire was done, so maybe no one's listening. No one's watching on YouTube. Yeah. So hey, if you haven't, go watch on YouTube. Check us out. But all right, that will do it for today's episode. So tomorrow we'll be back with our rankings episode for the week. So go check that out. Go on Instagram. Check out I'll have some ranks up there so you can get some Instagram. You can go on Instagram, make your comments. So we'll go over that. And then also we will have our mailbag episode for Thursday. So get your questions in, whether it be, we're not going to answer just a running back question, but if it's a flex question, get your flex questions in, trade questions, get them in, add, drop, whatever you got, get us your questions to us on Instagram, on Twitter, email at fantasyfootballprofit@gmail.com. Wherever you want to get those, get them to us and we will answer your questions. So that will do it for today. Talk to you guys next time.